this thing. And it was like we were consistent. We released it on time every single week. We never missed a week the entire time until we said that we're not going to do it anymore because I got too busy making records. But I was like, wow, I have the background to do it. I'm pretty sure I could pull it off. And he's like, all right, call me on Monday. Or he said, shoot me an email on Monday. So I went home like kind of freaking out, like, holy cow, this guy's going to like possibly give me a shot. That's crazy. This would be amazing. I would love to be a part of pureMix or whatever. So I went home and I sent him an email like the very next day. It's Monday. I sent him the email and he doesn't respond for like a week. And then he, at that point, I'm like, he's not going to respond. That's, whatever. That's right. What happens. Whatever. Back to the studio. Here I go. But a week later, he writes me and he says like, hey, sorry, I was on vacation. Let's do a call with my partner, Guillaume, who's the other half of pureMix and a complete genius that does not come out of the shadows. I always like, I have a running thing with him where like I keep trying to like pull him out of the shadows in front of cameras and stuff like that. And he won't let me do it. He like threatens to fire me every time. It's awesome. So
amazing.
But yeah, that was kind of it. Like that was how I got involved with them. Was I was just at a masterclass and he said, I'm looking for a guy. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm the biggest nerd in the room when it comes to that. I know things about Pro Tools I shouldn't know. And he's like, perfect, let's do it. So fast forward, it's been 7 years now with the company. And I went from, we were building that course to we were doing a lot more videos and we needed help on shoots. So I started doing that. And then I was editing video for a while, just covering pretty much all the roles for a very long time. And I think it was maybe 2018, 2019. Ben Lindell of Universal Audio was in the role that I'm in. And he moved on to UA. So when that transition happened, he recommended to them that, they put me in the role and they thought it made sense. So after a couple of years of doing everything, everything that was needed, jack of all trades hats, all the hats and all that, I was put into the content management role. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Has it been hard for you to balance, between mixing and working at the studio and doing all the pureMix stuff? Because that's seems like a ton of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been hard.
It's been very hard. Yeah, because that's the thing, right? Like, as I said earlier, like when I was at Sweetwater, after 6 months of talking to people about music and not making music, I had to leave. Yeah, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm not being fair to myself. This is not why I, did all the things that I did. So I was a little bit worried about that going into that role of just like, if I'm only making videos of music, then I don't know if it'll work out. Those are like a lot of thoughts I had, but internal thoughts because I was like, hell yes, I'll take the job, but it was, an internal thing. And it turned out like they actually, when we were having that decision, they were bringing me on for the role. They were like, we don't want you to stop making records, which was like a relief too, because I was freaking out about it. But they're like, you have to be making records, otherwise you're not relevant. Like you're not up to speed with everything that's going on. You can't have conversations with people if you're not actually sitting in the rooms and doing it yourself. So they're like, we feel like you will be better in this role and serve our members better if you are still making records. So huge relief, right? Like I don't have to leave my awesome job at the studio. I'm still making music, and I'm also getting to have that Vance Powell experience like once a month, anytime we're going out to a shoot or something like that. It's like that all over again,
Yeah. I get that with my own little sense by hosting this podcast of just like, I'm working, every day, but like, approximately once a week, I have a conversation with somebody who's doing great work and like get to learn from them and ask them what I'm curious to hear about. And I've kind of become my own little, R&D project, like rather than going to like pureMix, whatever, masterclasses or whatever. I've just been making my own little project that's a podcast,
Yeah, it's an amazing way to learn.
Super fun.
Yeah,
it is an amazing way to learn.
Yeah.
And just to finish off on that question, it's like, what does the breakdown of your week look like? How many days a week are you like on pureMix, and how much of it is like making records or mixing?
We talked about a little bit about this before the show, but I'm also a new dad. Our sons are like relatively same age. Mine will be 3 on Sunday, and that my hours look a lot different now today in 2022 than they did in 2019, before he was born. Before then, I was the crazy hustling, like I'll work, 400,000 hours per week and, whatever, like just ridiculous, right? Like going crazy, like few hours of sleep, whatever, I'll mix into the morning. I don't care, like just craziness. So back then it was like my like time was basically supposed to be split or whatever, but I was just doing all the things all the time. And I didn't have a lot of systems or processes set up for it, which we could talk for hours about, because
I definitely want to talk about systems. That's yes, that's a big part of why you're here.
Well, yeah, it changed. That was another like life-changing moment, really, because when I started doing that stuff, my weeks went from like, somewhere between 80 and 90 hours a week, sometimes crazier, but yeah, anywhere between that down to 40 or a little less, basically. Like
that's
once
amazing.
My son was born. And
wow.
There was like,
that's crazy.
It's completely crazy.
That's a crazy amount.
Yeah, it is. And it almost seems unbelievable, but like I think it just, to myself, it just means that I was doing things really bad before, like I didn't have a lot of intention in how I was doing my days. And it wasn't like I was sitting around like bullshitting with people during sessions or, like whatever, not like being productive, but there were ways to be more productive and to focus on things that mattered instead of just kind of doing everything all the time,
I want to, I guess I have one more question about pureMix, but like, maybe I'll come back around to it if we're already on the systems thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Did I answer that one okay? Was that all right?
Yeah.
Or it's a good segue.
You didn't answer how much. It seems like you're doing both full time, but now I guess it just takes up a lot less time.
It's it depends on the week. So a couple things happened between then and now with pureMix too. Like our team has grown very like exponentially. We have an office in Bordeaux, France now, which is where Guillaume lives, Fab's partner. So over there, like there's a marketing team now. There's people that are helping out with graphics and all of that stuff. So a lot of the roles that I was doing, like writing all of the newsletters and all the mailing content and the automated stuff, like all of that, that got moved on to another team. So my workload got cut back drastically, which was a relief, because they wanted, instead of having me write newsletters that were going out announcing our new content, it was like, well, other people can do that. You should go on a podcast every Monday with Andrew Sheps, or like lead up these live stream things, or like you can do a plug-in show. Like they were basically like, we want to use you for your talents, not to do this other stuff that, we can delegate to people who love that stuff. Like there's people who are great at writing newsletters. I'm an engineer. Like I'll do it because I need to, because I'm the content manager, but I don't have a passion for writing newsletters. So let's get somebody who does, and you go do something that you're passionate about, that kind of thing. Fab's very good about like understanding what people's strengths are, finding the best use for those things, and not like just burdening them with busy work, basically. Both like for the success of the company, but also because he wants to see those people move forward, and which is also good for the company, really, but like getting everybody their full potential.
Right. We kind of talked about this before we started recording, how like he just pulled you to kind of start asking questions at a NAM or an AES or something.
Yeah.
And as the podcast / video host thing began for you, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The quick synopsis of that was, I think it was like NAM 2016. We had a stage set up and we were live streaming from AES. It might have been AES, but it was in LA. And yeah, they were basically like, "Hey, Mark, you're gonna host these." Like while we're there, I think Ben like just got too busy with meetings or something. He was going to do it, and then they decided to have me do it. And I kind of like freaked out about it. Like the first one, I think, was Tony Maserati, and like I was a huge fan, obviously. So I'm like, kind of freaking out, and I just kind of found my way through it, but I was like so nervous the whole time. And at the end of it, Fab was like, "That was one of the best interviews I've seen in a long time." And I was like, "I thought you were going to fire me when I walked off the stage." And, he was like, "No," he's like, "What makes it good is that, you still care. Like you're completely like in love with the art, and you wanted to hear every word that was coming out of his mouth. You led him down like the paths that somebody, like, I think that he said like that I wouldn't have, because I would have known the answer or something like that. It was because of where I was at in my career that it was a good interview. And that was important, because it was, I'm like the avatar for the pro members of pureMix,
Right.
I get to like be the guy who's like, hey,
yes,
I'm in the chair for these people. Like, I'm the avatar asking the questions that they want to hear. And that's like an honor. That's awesome.
Yeah. I kind of told you also, like before we started rolling, that I kind of just asked the questions that pique my curiosity, because I am the target audience of this podcast. So if it's interesting for me, I bet it's interesting for my audience.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's totally a great way to, I think, a great way to go about it. Yeah. In terms of like pureMix as like a whole, like you've interviewed so many people, you've been on so many calls and so many videos. What would you say is like maybe one trait or thing that you've, like a common thing between all the greats that you've, whether it's, Andrew Sheps or, Maserati or any of these people, like what would be like something that you see going across all of them?
100% the word intention. Everything comes back to intention. And it's that same thing that I saw with Vance Powell. But it comes up on every single interview ever that we've done. Like every, mixing contest wrap up that we do when the mentor comes on and talks about like why he liked the winning mix. It's always intention. That it's that word over and over and over again. And to me, like, I think the most important part about that is, if you're mixing a song and you go to grab the lead vocal, there's a difference between looking at the lead vocal and being like, this is the lead vocal, Pro Q3 into 1176 into an LA2A or whatever like your thing is. There's a difference between like doing that before, let's just pretend you haven't even heard the multi-track yet. Like there are people who work this way where they're just like, there's the lead vocal, here's my lead vocal chain, let's go. And it's like, did you stop to think about what that thing is supposed to sound like in the song? Like, just stop for a second and think about it. And this is going to be like super deep cut nerd thing for anybody who's around my age, but there was this animated Transformers movie in the 80s. I don't know if you saw it, but
I don't think so.
It's every time I'm on one of these interviews, there's a scene that happens, and there's this kid who's like in this robotic suit, and he can't figure out how to walk, and his dad is like also in one of them, and he yells over to his kid. He's like, Daniel, just think about what you want to do before you do it. And then he's like, huh? And he like repeats it, and then he like stops and thinks for a second, and then he's like, jump. And somehow he makes the robot suit jump. And it's like, I mean, this is super nerd right now, like deep cut. But every time that I'm in one of these interviews and somebody says something about intention, or like, well, before I mic'd it up, I knew that this snare was going to be blah, blah, blah. And I always hear in the back of my head, Daniel, just think about what you want to do before you do it. But yeah, that's a lot of times, like people, and I do this too, like to a fault, where I'll just be working and I'll get to a track and I'm like, oh, pad synth, it's really, really fat, or well, that's kind of thinking about it. But I do things where like I have to catch myself and be like, yo, be present in the moment. Like you're just going in and cutting things up. Like, why are you doing that? Or even
right, habits.
yeah, habits. And you can get lost in a DAW too, and like just start throwing things in folders, while the song is playing. And like, I've caught myself being like, why am I doing this like bullshit organizational work? Like, I'm not even listening to the song, but the audio is coming out of the speakers and hitting my ears right now. And I like will catch myself being like, I'm not even present. I'm literally color coding tracks while the song's playing, and I'm not listening. What am I doing? Stop. Think about what you want to do before you do it. Move with intention. That's the number one thing that always comes up. So yeah, I love that. It's so important. Yeah, and as we get better at this stuff, it's easier to just be like, oh, this is what I have in my head. How am I going to get there? How am I going to use the tools I have at my disposal, as opposed to like, oh, I always use the 1176, like you said. Yeah. Oh, this is what I just, Yeah.
So
the thought is like, I need it to be compressed. Then you like the internal thoughts that you just kind of like run through in a subroutine are like, what kind of compression? Does it need to be brighter? Is there tone thing? Is there saturation or whatever? And then like you come out with your answer of, I will pull up the 1176. But having those thoughts first is the important thing. Yeah. Right.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's talk about some of the